you've been doing this for a very long time. So before we get into the new stuff of the 2.0 type of things out there, could you just break down really quickly what you've learned over the last 2 decades just about GMO and this industry of modifying our foods and how it's impacting our health?
Let's do it from a shock and awe perspective,
Please.
where let me just kind of shake the world of the listeners quickly in a very, very fast pace. Um, we have a lot of evidence showing that GMOs and the Roundup herbicide that's sprayed on most of the GMOs and the BT toxin insecticide that's created by genetically engineered corn, for example, and in South America, the soy, that these three things, the GMOs, the Roundup, and the BT, are driving high levels of disease. In fact, we know that when people switch to organic food, which does not allow either the GMOs or the Roundup and the BT toxin crops, that people get better from a large number of diseases. Now, if that's true, we should see a rise in those diseases in parallel with the increased use of GMOs. We should see a rise in the level of those diseases in livestock and pets. We should see animal feeding studies which indicate these diseases or their precursors are associated with forced feeding of GMOs and Roundup. And we should ideally see modes of action that it can explain how they create the diseases. Well, we have all of them. We have all of them. And so what I want to do very quickly, we're not going to spend an hour on the modes of action and all the animal feeding studies and whatnot. As I said, the shock and awe is the 50,000-foot view, and it's going to be the epidemiological studies. What diseases are going up in parallel with the increased use of GMOs and Roundup? That's correlation. It doesn't prove causation, but we have so much other evidence, including modes of action, clinical studies, animal feeding studies, that we're confident that there is a causal factor. So what I want to do is share the screen and glide through almost 40 slides very, very quickly to show which diseases that people have, including some of your audience, may be related to GMOs and Roundup. So we're looking now at inflammatory bowel disease. And you'll see this yellow line, which is the amount of glyphosate-based herbicides sprayed on corn and soy. Both corn and soy are genetically engineered not to die when sprayed with Roundup. The chief poison in Roundup is glyphosate. So this basically tracks the amount of extra glyphosate thrown into the human food supply through the genetically engineered soy and corn, and it's tracked to inflammatory bowel disease. And the R value, or the correlation, is 0.9378. A perfect correlation would be 1. Again, we can't say that one causes the other, but we have so much evidence that it does. This could be the extent to which it is influencing statistics in the United States in terms of disease. So I'm going to be flying through these particular charts, and some of them, like this, have glyphosate applied, like the last one, but it also has simply the percentage of genetically engineered soy and corn compared to the total soy and corn. So it compares two things. And in this one, a few of them have a trend. Prior to, say, in this case, 1993, where would the disease be going if no new factor came in? So this is deaths from obesity. So we just went from inflammatory bowel disease to death from obesity. I'm going to fly through these charts. You look at the images to see the slope. I'll read the title of the disease, and we'll get through 40 slides in less than 2 minutes. Here we go. Anxiety, diabetes, deaths from Alzheimer's, deaths from Parkinson's, deaths from hypertension, autism in 6-year-olds, insomnia, celiac disease, hospitalizations for acute kidney injury, death from kidney failure, kidney and pelvic cancer, liver cancer, liver and bile duct cancer, thyroid cancer, death from acute myeloid leukemia, breast cancer, deaths from intestinal infection, deaths from disorders of lipoprotein metabolism, peritonitis, hepatitis C, dementia, deaths from senile dementia, ADHD, schizophrenia, suicide by overdose, congenital birth defects, congenital heart defects, newborn metabolic disorders, newborn genitourinary disorders, skin disorders, newborns with lung conditions, newborns with eye disorders, immune-related newborn blood disorders, anemia, lymph disorders, and age-adjusted deaths due to stroke. This is the results of a survey of 3,256 people who reported getting better from 28 different conditions when they switched to non-GMO and largely organic diets. Many of them correspond with the charts you just saw. The most common result of improvement, according to this research, as well as informal audience surveys at 150 lectures, including medical conferences, shows digestive problems always number one. And fatigue and brain fog follow very closely.
And for everyone listening right now, everyone listening, let me just jump in, that these were all strikingly similar charts that sloped upwards on the trend. And we'll also be sharing this on a YouTube channel and other videos as well. But I mean, those charts are really all looking very, very similar across the board. And you're making the case now that glyphosate is a big part of this, correct?
Glyphosate and GMOs. You see,
GMOs.
If we want to try and find, for example, a connecting the dots strategy, we can look, for example, at cancer. Glyphosate was determined to be a class 2A carcinogen by the World Health Organization. But we also know that when Roundup Ready corn was fed to rats over 2 years, and this corn was not sprayed with Roundup, they also had multiple massive tumors. And tumors showed up in a lot of animal feeding studies. So both GMOs alone and the Roundup alone and together. When we look at insomnia, for example, the sleep cycle is often governed by melatonin, which converts from serotonin, which is created from L-tryptophan, which is produced in the gut bacteria through a shikimate pathway, which is blocked by glyphosate. So if you have glyphosate on your food, which is not just the Roundup Ready, but glyphosate is also sprayed on grains and beans just before harvest to dry them down, then you may be blocking the production of L-tryptophan from your own gut bacteria, starving your body of serotonin, 90% of which is produced in the gut, and that may not be able to translate into melatonin, which might cause the insomnia. So those are examples. If the most powerful predictive causal study on glyphosate shows that it causes non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, you saw a bunch of things in the liver. We can see how glyphosate blocks detoxification through the liver and cellular detoxification, and we can predict what happens there. We can go through each one of those diseases and show the animal feeding studies, the clinical experience, the livestock and pets, both from owners of pets and livestock, as well as veterinarians, to the modes of action. I did this for digestive disorders in the peer-reviewed study report with the survey results in the International Journal of Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. I just focused on digestive disorders, and there was so much evidence explaining how GMOs, Bt toxin, and Roundup could drive those diseases. For example, Roundup causes leaky gut. It also can damage the gut bacteria because it's an antibiotic. It can suppress digestive enzymes. It can damage the walls of the intestines. Bt toxin can create holes inside the cells, another type of leaky gut. It also damages the walls of the intestines. The GMOs have been shown to create potentially precancerous cell growth in the digestive tract, larger intestinal organs, and other digestive problems like stomach lesions and all that. You put them all together, no wonder that digestive issues are the number one reported benefit from people who get off of GMOs and Roundup, and that no wonder that inflammatory bowel and irritable bowel are skyrocketing in those that are not. So we can pull it apart, and if this were a a talk just on GMOs 1.0, we would end up with pretty powerful, convincing data. But I will not suggest, just to shortcut it, I did a film with Amy Hart called Secret Ingredients. We looked at 12 people, including families, that switched to organic, and autistic kids are no longer on the spectrum. Infertile couples have kids, people with allergies and brain fog and digestive disorders and all these things got better. And the doctors in the film say these are not one-offs. This is typical among my patients when they switch. In fact, when they cheat, their autoimmune disease symptoms come back, their joint pain comes back, and then they become absolutely dedicated. And then the scientists in the film explain why, and we have animations that show what happens in the body. Together, that is a very compelling case for eating organic, so much so that virtually everyone who watches it, who isn't already eating 100% organic, increases their commitment on the spot to organic. So it's also used by those people who are food fanatics and are trying to convince their friends to eat organic, and their friends now stay away whenever they talk about food. They roll their eyes and run. And I said, don't do it yourself. You're discredited because you're a friend. Let me do it. Show them the film Secret Ingredients at secretingredientsfilm.com and let that do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, so much of this really boils down to, of course, being selective in what you eat.